And the first thing is, obviously, you get what you tolerate. You know, we had a guy who was, he was, let's say, he would like sometimes come in a little bit late, not always show up on time, but you could absolutely set your watch to when he left every day kind of thing, right? And, you know, we mentioned it to him and said, you know, we noticed you're coming in late. And it wasn't every day and it wasn't every week, but it was a little bit. But the real kicker was one day he just decided to go home because he needed a nap. Yeah, exactly. And so he didn't tell me, he didn't tell Aaron, who was his manager. He mentioned it to the admin on the way out. So when we went looking for him, we're like, well, where did, you know, Bob go? I'll just use the term Bob. And we didn't know where he went. So Aaron, who's his manager, called him on his cell phone and woke him up, and he was pissed about that. You know, he said, hey, dude, and then, like, he yelled at him for waking him up, you know. So he said, well, you can go back to sleep. I just want to let you know you're fired. You know, now go back to sleep and don't ever come back here again, you know. So you get what you tolerate. And when people in your organization see poor, bad behavior tolerated, it lowers the standard of everybody else in the organization. And P.S., that includes you. You've got to be the first one in the morning and the last one at night. You've got to be leading. You've got to be doing your job, which is making this company win. And they can see it. Are you growing or are you not growing? Are you improving or are you not improving? Are you doing new initiatives? Are you launching new things? Are you hiring new people? See, when they see that, that's your job. And if they don't see you performing well, then they won't perform well. And you simply get what you tolerate. And it's often, we had this conversation yesterday in Greg Crabtree's Managing for Profitability discussion. We had this conversation where when you go back, maybe not all of you, because you're kind of been in the mix for a while, but when we get people in rapid implementation that are brand new to the toolkit, and they get around a lot of other successful MSPs, they get around me, and we create a bigger future, a bigger vision. We wake them up from mediocrity, and we actually give them some inspiration that they could be better, they could be more profitable, they could have better clients, and they start making this change. One of the things that they have to deal with is going home and dealing with the employees, because the employees don't always welcome that change, right? And the people who get you to 1 million might not get you to 10. And so, you know, because we had this discussion yesterday, one of the people in the group is doing a good job and doing what he's supposed to be doing, and looking at LER, labor efficiency ratios, and going to the techs and saying, there will be no raises because the labor efficiency ratio is lower than it needs to be, and you need to get it up to here, which means you got to improve your utilization, and sharing that with them. That you would think that would be a welcome message, and it is not. And so there may need to be some turnover and firing. So another thing you got to understand is you set the pace and you set the tone, but you have to be willing to enforce it. You cannot just say, show up on time. You can't just remind them. It's like you get one warning. If it happens again, you're fired. It has to be that level of tolerance. It can't be, well, okay, he comes in late, but he's our best tech. See, that doesn't work. Because if they're not with the program, they gotta go. So you get what you tolerate. Perks are not a substitute for poor culture, and they don't motivate anybody to do a better job. Just like I was talking about Mark Randolph with the hot tub. They don't. In fact, often I think perks can attract the wrong type of employee. It's just like direct marketing. So if I do an ad and I say, register for the webinar, and everybody who registers gets a free iPad, right? That's an incredible offer. I'll probably get a lot of people to sign up. Will I get people who are signed up to want to buy the toolkit? No. Because the bait was they want the free iPad. That's what attracted them to the webinar, not come to this webinar and learn about how to improve sales in your business, right? So when you have a lot of perks in a business and you advertise that, I think it attracts the wrong kind of person. It attracts the kind of person who wants hot tubs and paid for lunches and big fat IRA contributions, and they want, 4-day work weeks, and they want to have nap rooms and, and game rooms. So I think for me, I don't want to attract employees based on the perks. I want to attract employees based on the opportunity. I want to attract employees who want to be in a place where you're with other high achievers who don't tolerate BS, who don't tolerate mediocrity, who want to work on cool things. That's what I want to attract. So it should be irrelevant that we pay for lunch every day. I mean, that's a consideration, but you really want them focused on the job, right? I mean, so, another thing, sort of like trying to be, this kind of goes in with trying to be nice and be liked and trying to do the right thing by your employees, I know that's why you're doing it, but it often backfires and doesn't have the effect. Now, that's not to say, again, that you shouldn't reward good employees and give perks, but it should be based on performance, not just because you work here. Does that make sense? Okay. Other thing is trust your gut. If someone doesn't pass the smell test in an interview, or if they work for you for a while and you're starting to get a sense that they're kind of turning sour, trust your gut. There's something wrong. If you get a sense that they're becoming disgruntled, that they're starting to moonlight, that something is wrong, trust your gut. Most of you are so busy, like you know it deep down, but you just kind of ignore it because you don't want to deal with it. And I understand because I've been in the same position, but trust your gut. In the interview process, if there's one little thing that they do that just kind of irritated you, like there's a guy who just applied for a job, sales job. And so I give instructions. So I say, submit your resume and please answer these 3 questions. One is, tell me what you're really good at and tell me what you don't like to do and don't want to do. The second one is, what are you looking for in your next job? What's most important to you? And the third one is, tell me about specifics about your abilities and your accomplishments as it relates to sales, right? They're like 3 questions. So I give them a little task to see if they can do it. And I say, please send your resume with the answers to these 3 questions to me and copy Kathy, who is my assistant, who will then get you on my calendar. So Kathy doesn't schedule anything until we get that email back, which eliminates some people right there, right? If they can't follow that simple instruction, they're not even considered. So this doofus emails me and gets Kathy's email wrong, and all he has to do is cut and paste. I mean, this is not like hard, right? It's Kathy, Kathy. It's there, you can cut and paste. And not only that, but then he sends a second email going, oh, this came back undeliverable. Apparently, I don't know how to type an email. But the second time he sent it, again, he got Kathy's email wrong. So, right there, that's a sign, right? I'm not hiring somebody who can't get a simple task correct, all right? And again, when you're doing interviews, telling you, you're gonna have to look at 1,000 people before you find one. Right? You got to be that picky. That's why you got to be recruiting all the time. They're not your friends or family. You can be friendly with them. You can support them, but they're not your friends. They're not your family. And I say that, and I feel like I feel bad because like Jeff is sitting there and Mark's sitting there, and I actually trust Jeff and Mark more than most of my family members. Like honestly, I do. But I'm just saying I'm using that as a more general term, if you will. There are some employees that will become so essential to you, like Nicole. If God forbid something happened to my husband and I would want Nicole to raise my kids. That's the level of trust and respect I have for her. So I don't mean that in the sense that they're not your friends or family, but in general, because you do need a few key people on your team that are like that, But you got to understand, they're number one. They're looking out for themselves, and you can't blame them for that. They want more money, they want more opportunity, they want a good place to work. So they are going to make decisions that are in their best interest, and you can't fault them for that, right? So all the times that you helped them out and you did nice things, if you do it, which is my next point, be generous, but never have any expectations of receiving thanks or reciprocity. And this is a big one. Always give without expectation of generosity back. So if you decide to give somebody a bonus because they're having a tough time in their life and you want to help them out, that's great. But don't ever think for 1 second that then they owe you, because that's not how this works, right? My best story about this is I had an employee this is years ago. I had an employee who was not performing well, who was very disruptive, who had a lot of drama, and I told her we need to separate ways. I told her, I said, look, I need to fire you. And she cried and said, this is the worst thing. I've got all these bills. I've got medical bills. I've got all these things. You know, this is the worst thing ever. And I felt bad. So what I said is, I said, look, here's what I'll do. Stupid. By the way, never underestimate the stupidity of yourself, right? I mean, what was it? Einstein said there's two things that he's absolutely sure about, and that's the infinity of the universe and human stupidity. And he's not so sure about the universe, right? That you know, but the human stupidity. So yeah, so this was me, big stupid. I said, and what I'm saying is, go ahead and laugh at me. I said, look, as long as you're not disruptive, and by the way, the reason I'm firing her is because she's disruptive. But if you do not cause any problems, I'll let you stay and work. And you can even go interview on other jobs as long as you're doing your work, as long as you're not disrupting anybody, either until you find another job or until I replace you, because I didn't have a replacement right then and there. So we agreed to that. Now, what she then proceeded to do was turn every employee against me. She stole my client list, sold it to a competitor, quit, went to work for the competitor, who then was marketing to all of my all of my clients. And I know because I suddenly got a barrage of emails going, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? Right? Which I then had to get a cease and desist. I had to sue them. They countersued for defamation, which didn't make any sense. It was just, it's like, you know, here's a tactic. What some lawyers do is they countersue with some kind of bullshit thing. And then they try to use it as a bargaining chip, but it doesn't matter. You still got to deal with 2 lawsuits. And now you've got this, caused a big disruption, lost a lot of revenue over this, just from the attorneys, from the attorney fees, from the clients getting caught in the crossfire, from, you know, because they're telling everybody Robin's this bully and she's, you know, all this stuff. So I'm telling you, you know, be generous, but don't expect that if you're generous, then they're going to reciprocate. Stop trying to be liked. Again, it's not your job to make your employees happy either.